spawn in. Well, it's interesting just looking at the
Breaking news alert.
Good afternoon to you folks. I'm Eric Von Anken, stepping away from soccer for just a few minutes because we got some breaking news on the Space Coast. You are looking live at a Falcon 9 rocket with 2 astronauts on top on that capsule, that Dragon crew capsule. Again, this is a SpaceX mission. Essentially, part of the role of this is rescuing the Boeing mission that did not go so well. So 2 firsts today, first in a long time and first ever. First in a long time is, as I said, just these 2 astronauts. On the right, that is Commander Nick Hague, a Space Force colonel, and on the left is a Russian cosmonaut. And there will be 2 empty seats, which hasn't happened since 2021. Remember the first test flight of the SpaceX Dragon crew capsule only had Bob and Doug, just 2 astronauts. They are leaving those 2 empty seats to bring home the 2 that have been on the space station far longer than they expected, Butch and Sonny. They will bring them home in just a few months. The other first here is, for the first time, we're going to launch in several decades from the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. We got our Space Coast correspondent out there. News 6's James Barbero, who's covered many launches alongside me. And James, we are now just about 4 minutes from launch.
Hey, Eric. Nice to join you on a Saturday here at the Cape. So yes, T-minus 3 minutes and 30 seconds. It's pretty remarkable because impulsively about 2 hours ago, when it really started pouring here at the Cape, I thought, how in the world is this going to happen? But you have to quickly remember, it doesn't matter what the weather was like an hour ago or 2 hours ago. It matters what the weather is like at 1:17 when they're set to launch. And they knew then that the skies were going to clear. They were hoping just enough to get Falcon 9 Crew Dragon and the diminished Crew 9 off the ground for the first time from SpaceX's pad, Launch Pad 40 on the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station side here at the Cape. All the launches from SpaceX and the Commercial Crew Program before this, going back 4 years, happening, of course, at Pad 39A. With the redundancy and the success of SpaceX's flights to the International Space Station and beyond with some of the fully private missions, they've been thinking more about adding another pad. So NASA and SpaceX have been working on this for 2 years to add that launch tower and to add that crew access arm so that astronauts Nick Hague and cosmonaut Alex Gorbanov could walk into that capsule, get ready to blast off to space. We can call it a rescue mission here. If you ask NASA, the spin is that it's just another crew rotation. Of course, the story all summer has been how Starliner failed to bring back Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams. What could have been just an 8-day mission to the space station back in June is looking now more like 8 months. So this is their lifeboat now, this Crew Dragon capsule going to the space station. The 2 previous crew members on Crew 9, Zena Cardman, she was cut along with another astronaut. Zena's been on commentary today, and it's been pretty remarkable listening to her. She sounds like a complete professional, knowing that they had to open up 2 seats to bring Butch and Sonny home. Butch and Sonny now missing the holidays. But they, just as professional as well, just focusing on what they can control. And what we can control, as far as we know right now, is that countdown clock is at T-minus 1 minute and 30 seconds, everybody. This Falcon 9 rocket going to take off with a crew of 2, the 9th full-length operational mission from SpaceX since 2020, along with being the first launch from this pad. There's a sonic boom warning, so SpaceX will attempt to land this booster here at the Cape. So about 7 or 8 minutes after launch, Eric, everybody just be out, get your ears out for listening. That's become routine as well, so I think less people are paying attention. But it still gets your attention undoubtedly because it is so loud.
It's coming.
But let's send it back to you, Eric.
It is coming for sure, James. Thank you. And as you said, so there is a 30% chance, at least that's what the meteorologists were saying, that this would not happen at 1:17. But James's point is, as long as the weather is clear at that very minute, when they are ready to put that rocket into the final countdown sequence and send it towards the space station, that is all that matters. We are just a few seconds now from launch, again, of only 2 astronauts At the top of that SpaceX capsule, normally there are 4, but this is, as James says, could be described as a rescue mission. Let's watch these live pictures of this Falcon 9 lifting off from the Space Coast in 35 seconds.
That's our final go for launch. SpaceX reporting go and the crew reporting go.
30 seconds.
Standing by for the first launch of
10,
humans
9,
from Space Launch
8,
Complex 40.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. Ignition full power. And liftoff of Crew 9. Go SpaceX. Go Falcon. Go NASA.
Liftoff of Crew 9 now soaring to the International Space Station.
Stage 1 Alpha. Stage 1 propulsion is nominal. Copy 1 Alpha.
Those 9 Merlin engines now providing 1.7 million pounds of thrust, propelling Falcon 9 and Crew 9 and continuing to get good calls from teams here on the ground.
Of course, these incredible views mean we are just a little bit past 30 minutes or 30 seconds into our 9th rotational crew mission.
Power, telemetry nominal.
Onboard Dragon and Falcon 9 with good callouts for mission control that everything is looking good. With that, stage 1 is throttling down to pass through max Q, which is the period of maximum dynamic pressure on Falcon 9 during ascent.
Max Q.
Confirmation of max Q.
Vehicle is supersonic.
And that Falcon 9 is now traveling faster than the speed of sound.
Stage 1 throttle up. Stage 1 Bravo. Copy 1 Bravo.
That call out for 1 Bravo means we're in the second and final abort mode for the first stage and continuing to get good performance.
And vac chill is underway.
Crew is pulling just over 2 Gs at this point. Next up, we heard the engine chill on the second stage MVAC engine has begun, and then we will have MECO, or main engine cutoff, where the 9 engines on the first stage will cut off ahead of the first and the second stages, and then will separate from one another. Then that single Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage will ignite and continue to carry Crew 9 to orbit while the first stage begins its journey back to Earth. Two minutes in, and the crew is now traveling over 2,600 miles per hour.
Stage 1 is throttling down.
Confirmation there from mission control that stage 1 is throttling down as we prepare for main engine cutoff.
So far, so good. You heard the call out for main engine cutoff coming up. That means the first stage of the rocket is going to separate from the second stage. The second stage is attached to the astronaut capsule, where those 2 astronauts are probably having a good day, enjoying a little bit of extra leg room, shoulder room, because again, there's only the 2 of them. This capsule is built to carry 7, but typically they put 4 people on board, leaving those 2 seats open for the Boeing Starliner astronauts early next year to come home with them on this SpaceX capsule. A lot of people have called this coming to the rescue. We know that folks along the Space Coast are having a good day. Here's a picture of them, our photojournalist extraordinaire, Goose Gosselin, behind the lens here at Jetty Park, because, hey, it's early Saturday afternoon. I know folks get to hang out by the water, and they get the treat of seeing a rocket go up with 2 people on board. That is a great spot. I've been there many times because if you're lucky, depending on how the wind blows, you get to feel and hear the rumble rolling across the river there, coming across the water of that rocket lifting off, and the weather cleared out just in time. Again, our Space Coast correspondent, James Sparvero, was there at the Kennedy Space Center. And James, this is interesting because normally this launch of the Falcon 9 with astronauts is just a few miles behind you. But in this case now, it's over at the Space Force Station, a first time since the Apollo missions.
It's pretty incredible, Eric. So our photojournalist DJ with me right now, he's got his camera aimed at the sky because, like we've been telling you, there's going to be a booster landing attempt. So we don't want to miss that. And it's DJ's first time ever recording a launch, so it's a thrill for him. So I just want him to soak it in, pay attention to that, and see as much as we can see because it is still cloudy out here. We know they got the rocket off, but yeah, they just needed that perfect window, or not even perfect, good enough, because yeah, it's still not a great weather day out here. But once that booster comes down, folks, if they are out at Jetty Park today or the Cape Canaveral beaches or Cocoa Beach beaches, they're going to have a wonderful sight and a thrill. Or either way, they're going to get interrupted because it's so loud. I know my dog back home in his room, he's going to pay attention because that's the one thing that startles him. But yeah, it's interesting not looking at pad 39A for the first time in 4 years for a SpaceX crewed mission, looking at pad 40, which we're talking so much about the Starliner crew. They launched at the first pad that's directly to the north of pad 40. That's pad 41, the ULA pad, with the Atlas V rocket that took Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams to space on Starliner back in June. And what could have been only an 8-day mission is now looking more like 8 months. And Nick Hague and Alex Gorbanov's mission, the diminished crew of 2, not 4, they lose a month on the space station themselves. This mission's been delayed for about a month while NASA was making the difficult decision of what to do about bringing the Starliner crew home. We know that ultimately they decided not to bring Starliner back with the crew. They said it was just too uncertain how those failing thrusters would perform, and they had to consider the helium leaks too, so they didn't want to take the risk. And fortunately, Starliner did return safely, and now they have the benefit of having the capsule on the ground, and they can review everything that happened, get the data, and eventually NASA, they're really doubling down on their confidence in Starliner. They talked about it yesterday at one of those press conferences. They said they're not writing off Boeing and Starliner just yet. They've only got maybe as many as 5 possible crewed missions to the station, and that's optimistically speaking. That's considering that the station should be retired by the end of the decade, so sometime between maybe 2026 and 2030, NASA still thinks they can pull this off with Starliner, and what a comeback story that will be, because it's really had problems for 5 years now. And when you call this a rescue mission, NASA spins it like it's just another crew rotation and they're just extending Butch and Sonny's mission by several months, and being the professionals that they are, they're willing to take that up. And James, we're looking back to the south now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it looks like we're getting close. That's it coming down right behind you.
Yeah, we're trying to spot it. It's cloudy over the Cape, and DJ's a first-timer out here, but yeah, he's got his camera pointed in the right direction. I told him from my experience.
Did you feel it yet?
He thinks it's landed, actually. We didn't feel it, no, and it's only 7.5 minutes after launch, so typically I don't hear the sonic boom and see the booster landing until 8, so okay. DJ was right. Yep, that's why I told him focus on the landing, and he nailed it.
You got it. And James, you know, this is just one last point here. What's been really interesting about, you know, who spins it and how they spin it, right? The conversation about were the astronauts stranded on the space station, and you know, NASA says rightly so, we could have brought them home at any time if we needed to, and so then, you know, the people will say, well, you know, then they are stranded. And NASA's point is, no, we just have a regular rotation of astronauts. Every 6 months, we send a capsule up, and we switch out the people, and we bring them down. And that's what we're doing. We're waiting until this next regular rotation, because there's no urgency. There's no need to bring them down. Hence, they don't like the word stranded.
That's right. It's been our responsibility really to decipher what's the truth here. Is it somewhere in between maybe how impulsively the public wants to call this just a disaster, and how NASA just wants to call it maybe business as usual, working through adversity, learning, growing, that sort of thing. Eric, I heard another journalist out here describe it like when you're at the airport and you miss your flight, you're not stranded, you're just stuck. So in her mind, it was fair to say they were stuck. And if you were to tell the NASA mission managers that they were stuck on the space station, they were more acceptable to that term, because they would say, well, if they're going to be stuck, The space station's a good place to be stuck as they continue to work and live on orbit, continuing their mission of a quarter century now of science and research in space.
Sure, and essentially with these two people now, Butch and Sonny, on the space station for the next 8 months. So that's 80 hours extra per week of work that they can do. They're always short people trying to do the things that they're trying to do in space. All of those experiments, all of the things they've done in space and on the space station that have benefited us here on Earth. James, we're going to let you go. The rocket is safely in orbit with those two astronauts, including our American commander, Nick Hague. And James is safe on the ground, along with all of those other people that we saw, all those pictures of space watchers, we like to call them, at Jetty Park, all up and down the Space Coast, enjoying on a Saturday afternoon, not just a liftoff, but a landing and the shaking of that sonic boom. We're going to turn you back over to soccer now. Appreciate you staying with us. So glad this went well. We'll see you again later tonight. Our first newscast isn't until 11 p.m. I'm Eric Von Eycken. Enjoy your afternoon.
This has been a News 6 breaking news alert. For continuing coverage of this developing story, go to clickorlando.com.